The Truth Stafford.
Howdy.
And of course, when Roy gets his act together in there, we'll have everything going here. We thought we had it once, but there we are. Now we're on the air, I hope. Okay, and hopefully they can hear us out there in TV land. And of course, we are from the beautiful Tire Factory Studios here, Fred, and I noticed you were making tires when I got up here earlier to fix the studio tonight. Did you get any of them radials done that I ordered?
No.
All right.
Say, I got a tire though that's a 13-inch.
Well, good. Well, Fred,
do you need a 13-inch tire?
The loyal owner of the Raccoons is now in business. Is there any new business?
Yes, sir.
Like what?
Porn leads 5-year-old to sex. Pornography, that supposedly harmless expression of free speech, has claimed another victim, this time a 5-year-old boy. In Kenosha County, Wisconsin, district attorneys made that shocking discovery in a case there. Investigators discovered boys as young as 3 is having sex with their girl cousins. A 5-year-old told investigators just imitating what he'd seen in a pornographic video.
Huh. That's amazing. Okay, Fred, well, we got a lot of business to take care of tonight. We're going to be giving away this cassette mag. It's a, what it is, Fred, is a tape, book on tape by Word Audio, book on cassette, and the name of it is Mainstream Values Are No Longer Politically Incorrect by Ralph Reed, and he, of course, he's the head of the Christian Coalition, which has close to 2 million members and is very politically active in swaying elections one way or the other.
Yes.
So this is 2 audio tapes, running time about 180 minutes. I'm going to give this away to some lucky viewer tonight who calls in with the right answer. And of course, you have to wait till I ask the answer before you can ask the question before you can answer it. Now, Fred, on the way over here, I went to the post office and I got found a card in the post office there from the Bolton Refuge House. And you know, sometimes, Fred, that's the last resort for some people that some women need to go when they're in a bad marriage and they're getting some domestic abuse, or the children are being abused or something, and they no longer can live in that situation. They can always go to the Bolton Refuge House, and there's a toll-free 24-hour counseling line, and that number is 834-9578. And if you're in town and but you live outside of this area, you can call the 800 number, which is 1-800-252-4357. The local number again, once again, is 834-9578 for the Bolton Refuge House, which is a shelter and counseling center for victims of domestic violence, abuse, and sexual assault, Fred. And of course, we know in today's society that there's a lot of this going on. And you've probably seen a little bit of it in your time, Fred.
Yes.
It's very prevalent out there in today's families, especially with the breakdown of the family and over 50% divorce rates, and there's a lot of problems going on out there in America, Fred. Okay, well, this is Monday, July 22nd. It's been that day all day today, Fred. 204th day of the year, the 30th week, 7th month. 56% of 1996 has already elapsed, Fred. And you know what that means. Christmas is right around the corner. All right. We'll get down to some events that happened on this date, and we'll see if somebody can win this free 2-tape book cassette. This is a full-length book, but it's on cassette, so you don't even have to read it. Just put it in your cassette player, and you can let the author read the book to you. On this date, 123 years ago, July 22nd, this battle raged in the South, pitting the Confederate defenders against the Northern Union Army, which was attacking. The name of the general who was defeated this town on this date was General Sherman. Of course, he's famous for his drive through the South during the Civil War, where he slashed and burned everything in his path, killed all the animals, left the inhabitants of the South starving as he moved through with his army. whatever he could kill and haul along with his army to feed his army, he took and left the inhabitants there to fend for themselves. And of course, his job was to render the South useless, take away their arms and their food and everything so that they would quit.
Who was that? The Sherman?
General Sherman.
Yeah.
And
Sherman.
so he defeated these Confederate defenders on this date, 1864. What is the name of the city that he defeated these defenders in? And that's for our first caller, or maybe our second caller, and my rusty, trusty sidekick, Fred the True Stafford, not Fred the True Stafford, Roy Rogers Hoff, on the engineering in there. We'll get that on the phone there. And of course, you know Fred.
Yes.
Roy Rogers Hoff was related to Wiley Post. He was the first around the world solo flight man to fly around the world solo back in 1933. That's Fred's niece on his nephew's side, twice removed. That's back in the 30s. All right. I think we got a phone call on line 1, so we'll see if they got the right answer. And Roy, you're going to have to move that email address over. The whole end of it's off the air there. Of course, that email address is COWS at, that funny looking C there should be at discover-net.net, and that is for email. If you'd like to write in and ask Fred or I or anything on the email address, for all of you computer fans out there and out there in cyberspace, go ahead and use COWS, C-O-W-S, at discover-net.net. We'll take the first call and see if they know the answer to this very important question to see if they want to win the audio tapes. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Was it Battle of Atlanta?
Yes, that's right. How'd you know that?
It was just on TV tonight.
It was?
Yeah.
Huh, well, I didn't watch TV tonight, so I didn't catch that. Of course, that ties in with the Olympics, too, but...
Why it was on.
Oh, well, that's something. Well, you won yourself this 2 cassette tape set here by Ralph Reed, who holds a PhD in American history from Emory University and has led the Christian Coalition since 1989. He's one of the nation's leading political analysts and movers and shakers, and he's gained a nationwide exposure for his outspoken and informed apologetics for traditional values. And he's appeared on Nightline, Larry King Live, and Meet the Press, as well as he wrote columns in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, and he's been featured in Time and Newsweek magazine. So this is yours now. How you need to get this, you need to get back on the line 1 there, and my rusty trusty sidekick number 2, Arlene the Double Truth Kruger will get your ad. Well, actually, we don't need anything. What you can do is, since we lost you there, is you just need to come down here to PAC, public access. It's in the old tire factory up on the 4th floor, and this will be in my mailbox here. So just come up to the front desk and tell them that you won this, and it'll be right in there in my mailbox for you right there at the front. You can come in any time this week and get it. And if you run into Fred, ask him to give you a tour of the Cow Report studios. He's down here from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, giving tours of the studios. And how long does the tour take now, Fred? 45 minutes to an hour or something like that? To give a complete tour of the Cow Report studios? All right, so Fred will give you a tour while you're down here. And Roy, I think you're going to have to move the phone number in too. That's off the screen. Okay, so there you have it. You can get that there by just coming in and taking care of that. All right, now, Fred, I had some very important business here to talk about. First of all, you know the Republican convention's coming up.
Yes.
Not too long after the Olympics. And of course, not much is going to happen politically here during these 2 weeks of the Olympics, or 10 days, or whatever it is. But I've just gotten a list of the GOP convention speakers, Fred, for the upcoming convention, which is August 12th. And that's out in California this year. And you'd be kind of surprised who's going to be the speakers this year, Fred. The number one speaker is retired General Colin Powell. He's agreed to give a high-profile opening night speech at the Republican National Convention.
Yeah.
So that probably signals that he won't be the vice presidential candidate for Dole, since he's going to give that speech. And probably to introduce Colin Powell will be former First Lady Nancy Reagan. She's one of the speakers too. Then the rest of the lineup is former President George Bush, former President Gerald Ford, New York Representative Susan Molinari, New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman, Texas Governor George W. Bush, and that looks like it's it so far, Fred.
Well, that means that Christians shouldn't be voting for anything that comes out of this convention.
Well, what this appears, Fred, I think I figured out what the strategy is here. Okay, you got Colin Powell, who's known nationally, so that can draw votes. You got George Bush, who's known nationally.
Won't get my vote, I'll tell you.
And you've got former President Gerald Ford, who's from Michigan and also known nationally. Now, you got New York Representative Susan Molinari. Not only is she female, but she's pro-abortion, but she's also from one of the biggest states in the Union, New York, which is a big electoral state. Michigan is a big electoral state, so you got Gerald Ford from there. New Jersey is a big electoral state. You got the governor, Christine Whitman, from there, and she's also female. Texas
She's
governor,
also pro-choice.
pro-choice. You also have Texas Governor George W. Bush, who I think is pro-life, and he's from Texas, which is another big state. Then you have former First Lady Nancy Reagan, who makes her home in California, the other big top state there for the electoral votes. So they're using that strategy, Fred, to get these speakers in here to represent those big states where the electoral votes is. Because from what I've seen in my analysis of the presidential race, Bob Dole is very far behind in the electoral race. Something like 2-to-1 almost.
Yes,
it's going to be tough to make.
27% behind right now.
Well, the electoral votes is what counts, and these big states need to be thoroughly represented. So what they've done, Fred, is they've shifted the emphasis from the '92 convention. It was a very conservative convention. You had Pat Buchanan and Pat Robertson, and it was very set up very conservative. And of course, the leaders of the Republican Party say that's why we lost in '92. So this year they're going more towards the center, being moderate to left of moderate. Before it was to the right of moderate, with a little taste of moderate in there. Of course, you had George Bush, who was the moderate running for office, but he was pro-life too. So you had kind of a right-wing convention. So this convention is geared to pull more people into the party quickly to get votes. Now, what my theory is, Fred, they're doing this, but then they're going to turn right around and they're going to name a pro-life running mate. So this is to appease the pro-abortion, pro-choice crowd, and it's also to bring more women in to vote for Bob Dole. So what you're going to see is probably quite a bit younger, fairly handsome, probably a Midwestern governor who is pro-life, be Dole's running mate.
They're talking about Governor Ridge from Pennsylvania.
Of course, Pennsylvania is another big state electoral votes-wise. And
he is pro-choice.
Another thing is, though, Fred, they could go with somebody from the East because right now, Bill Clinton has every state in the East locked up, including New York. Every state. Where Dole is strong is in the South and in the Rocky Mountain area and a couple of the Midwestern states, and that's it. It's looking pretty rough out there. So they've got to make some drastic changes, and if it's at the conservative right's expense, they're going to do it, Fred.
Well, the conservatives should vote for Charles, what's his name? Charles Collins?
Yeah, they ought to vote for Charles Collins. All right, Fred, what do you got?
Well, let's see what we got here. Abortion case namesake shunned at California church. Lady who was rowing the landmark Roe versus Wade court decision didn't talk about a change of views on abortion from inside the Danville, California church. Elders at the Rolling Hills Community Church canceled a June appearance by Norma McCovey without giving a reason why. But members of the Operation Rescue say the fact the anti-abortion group was backing McCovey is the cause of the cancellation.
Well, that's amazing, Fred.
So she didn't get to speak.
Norma McCorvey, of course, she was the one that Roe versus Wade was all about, right?
Yes.
All right, Fred, we're going to take a call, and then we're going to talk about a Rottweiler that mauled a one-year-old infant. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay, Fred, there's another one of those people that they just don't know how to talk on the phone, so we can't deal with that. All right, Fred, a Rottweiler mauls mass infant to death. This is a few days old now, and maybe they saw it on CNN or something, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. A one-year-old boy at a 4th of July cookout died Thursday after being mauled by a 130-pound Rottweiler dog. That's a big dog, Fred. Matthew Pedersinski of Orange, Massachusetts, was at a family cookout when the dog's owner took him to see the Rottweiler tied up outside. The dog lunged at the child and snatched him from the woman, grabbed him right out of the woman's arms, took the baby's head in its mouth, and shook it, just like a doll. The dog's owner rushed over to the dog and pried its jaws open to free the child, but he's already been severely injured. The youngster died a short time later after being flown by helicopter to a Worcester hospital. The dog was euthanized later Thursday at the request of its owner. No charges were filed against the owner. Rottweilers and Pit Bull Terriers have long been used for security purposes, but recently have become associated with vicious attacks and aggressive behavior. Now, I don't know if it's better reporting or the dogs are just getting more aggressive, Fred, but every few months we read about a Rottweiler or a Pit Bull that attack and kills a small child or injures an adult. They are dangerous, so be careful when you have young children around dogs, especially Rottweilers and Pit Bulls. And especially if you're going over to somebody's house to visit and you've got a small child with you. Make sure you watch that, because that dog could do some damage very quickly. So don't take any chances. All right. Well, Roy, you still got that phone number off the line there. Okay, it is in here anyway. Well, the phone number, for those who can't read it on your TVs at home, is 839-6261, and we are taking calls. All right, Fred, we got some serious business here coming out of the White House. And of course, with the Olympics now, everyone's got their hand up here. Oh, forgot to tell you about my injury there. I don't think Roy can get it up there, but I had a little injury with my finger there. Let's see if you can get it in an area there where you can see it. See that there? Cut that finger up pretty good there. Okay, Fred, with the Olympics in full swing now,
Yes.
you notice everything's kind of quieted down about the big brouhaha with the whitewater trial down there in Little Rock, Arkansas, the second round of trials down there, which is actually taking it one step closer to the Clinton White House. And it's actually breached into the Clinton White House with one of the unindicted co-conspirators is a very, very close friend of Mr. Clinton. He's been a confidant for something like 20 years of his. He's an unindicted co-conspirator in the latest round of trials in Little Rock, Arkansas. But the other big story is, Fred, the FBI files, which now has ballooned up to close to 900 files that thugs from the Clinton administration were hired to go through these 900 some files of former Republican and actually people that worked in the White House and worked presently in the White House, and former employees of the Bush White House were scrutinized by FBI files, which is a violation of the Privacy Act, which came out of the 1974 era of the Whitewater, of the Watergate
Our friend
hearings.
the form. He was sent to jail for revealing an FBI file to one of the media.
So on one hand here you have 900 files that the FBI just handed over to some security thugs in the White House. One of them was a bouncer and a dope addict before he came to the White House, and the other one is an old-line thug from the military who has been sniffing around doing investigations for the Army for years. These two thugs got a hold of 900 records of the FBI. Now, first of all, the FBI is guilty of giving those records to them because they didn't have any reason to give them to them. You have to have very specific reasons for the FBI to hand over those files, so the FBI violated the Privacy Act 900 plus occasions, so somebody there can go to prison for the rest of their life. Now, Charles Colson, who's the head of the prison fellowship right now and is also well known on radio and TV, and he's been on Crossfire and he's been on dozens of different radio programs. He was in the inner circle of the Nixon administration back in the 70s. One file he got from an FBI agent and gave to a reporter. That one file got him a 1 to 3 year prison sentence. So if you extrapolate that out, that means that the people that got a hold of these 900 files are facing 900 to 2,700 years in prison. One file put Colson in prison for 1 to 3 years. And for some other shenanigans, which were mild, now considered as some of the thuggery that the Clinton administration has been doing for the last 3 years, G. Gordon Liddy spent 5 years in a federal prison and did hard time because he wouldn't bend to some demands that were made on him. So here you have these thugs, one of them named D. Craig Livingston, and the other one was, I think, Mercetti or Mercasey, who was the other thug. And maybe you can hear us now since that machine kicked off. Those two thugs got a hold of these records to comb through there and blackmail present and former employees of the Bush administration. So the Secret Service warned that this D. Craig Livingston was a possible threat to the president. In other words, they had thoughts that possibly, because of his drug use and his being a bouncer, that he could actually do harm to the president. Jump him, kill him, slit his throat, whatever. He's in the inside circle, Fred. He's as close as you to me to the president on many occasions. And this was before he was hired as White House Personnel Security Director. The Secret Service warned the president that he was a security risk. Mr. Livingston was hired anyway, despite derogatory findings of a security nature that indicated that he might pose an immediate or projected threat. Arnold Cole, Assistant Special Agent in charge of the White House Access Control Branch, told the House Government Reform and Oversight Committee. Mr. Cole said he went to William H. Kennedy III, Associate White House Counsel, after reviewing Livingston's FBI file in early '93. Cole said he asked Kennedy, former Rose Law Firm partner of Hillary Clinton, if he concurred with the security concerns. He said he would look into it, Mr. Cole said, and ultimately he decided to issue the pass. That is, Kennedy decided to issue it. Okay, Fred, but that's one thing. Now, so you got a security threat right next to the president who could go off the deep end because of his past drug use and his violent nature. I mean, he was a bouncer, so he's used to twisting arms and throwing people to the pavement. That's what they had there in the White House. Okay, so Fred, now not only do you have, like 30, 40 homosexuals in the White House working for the president, but guess what else you have here, Fred? You have the thug from the Army there, that Casey, who's been taking the Fifth Amendment now because he's been caught red-handed blackmailing people. Plus you got this thug named D. Craig Livingston, who's in charge of security. He's a security director for the personnel director. Not only that, Freddie, but guess what else you got there in the White House? You got 30 to 40 White House officials and staff on the incoming Clinton administration who had recently used cocaine, hallucinogenic drugs, and crack cocaine before they first sought clearance to the White House. So here you got 40 people that are coming into the White House, 42 of them counting Livingston and this Mercasey. But you got 30 to 40 White House officials and staff that are acid heads, cocaine heads, and crack cocaine heads. that have just recently used drugs,
Yes.
coming into the White House looking for passes so that they can get clearance. They were given temporary access passes over Secret Service. Are you with us here, Fred?
Yes.
Over Secret Service objections. Now, the administration responded to the Secret Service current concerns by setting up a special drug testing program as a condition for White House passes for applicants with recent histories of illicit drug use. Now, after the first wave of Clinton appointees, 21 of these White House aides enrolled in the drug testing program, Fred. So in other words, it's a random thing where you just walk up and say, okay, we want you to do a urine test right now, follow me to the bathroom. So these 21 people were so involved in drug use that they signed up for this program. That's how much worry the Secret Service had over these drug addicts in the White House. Today, right now, as of July 18th, 9 are still enrolled. Okay, now this guy here says, I have reviewed literally hundreds of background investigations. I would say that more than 30 and more than 40 perhaps had drug usage. Secret Service agent Jeffrey L. Undercofer told the committee in a sworn deposition taken last Wednesday and made public at yesterday's hearing. There was some where the drug use was recent, Fred. And, okay, now, Fred. Of course, we had Michael McCurry, who's the press secretary, say that he used marijuana back in the 70s when he was a kid. But here's some of the other concerns they had, Fred. Are you with us?
Yes.
All right. Drug usage, non-payment of taxes for many years, and other problems prevented several hundred, Fred, several hundred top Clinton officials and staff from receiving Secret Service and FBI clearance for permanent White House passes throughout 1993 and beyond. And this is according to the Secret Service. Several hundred of them, Fred, had drug usage, non-payment of taxes, and other problems that prevented them from getting permanent security passes. Now, some of the big names here are White House Senior Advisor George Stephanopoulos, IRA Magaziner, and Robert O. Borston were among those denied permanent passes. So George Stephanopoulos is one of the very inner circle of Clinton's confidants. Can't get a permanent pass because of whatever reasons. So they got some very serious security problems there in the White House, Fred. Okay, this guy's name is Anthony Marsica, yeah, an Army detailee to the White House, claimed under oath that outdated Secret Service lists were responsible for their improper FBI file searches of more than 900 former GOP aides. Basically what it was, Fred, was to get dirt on these 900 people so that they could blackmail them. Now, not only did they have this little secret program going on in the White House, they also have a 200,000 name database file of people where they can put good and bad things into their files so they can run that name up and see whether they want to blackmail them or invite them to the White House. So we have, you talk about Richard Nixon having a dirty, having a hit list. Well, this here hit list is between 900 and 200,000 names on Clinton's hit list of people to make sure that they know things about for blackmail purposes. All right, Fred, we're going to take a call, and then we're going to get right into one of your short paragraphs there. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, did you know it was Bob Dole's birthday today?
Huh, yes, I did. He's 73 today, and he's 73, and he looks very young, Fred. He looks like he's more like he's about 60. I just saw a picture of him, and he's really looking good for being 73, and his doctor said he was in perfect health and that he can serve for president. Of course, now all he's got to do is kickstart that campaign, get it going in the right direction, fire all of his present staff from his campaign manager on down, and get some good campaigners in there, Fred. I mean, he had his staff, the people that were in there before, he was stepping on the National Rifle Association's toes, he stepped on the NAACP's toes, he stepped on the anti-smoking people's toes. I mean, there's not too many toes left to step on.
And he also stepped on the The pro-life toes.
pro-life toes. He dumped Pat Buchanan, told him to get lost. So that campaign of his needs a fresh start. They need to have a Saturday night massacre and dump the campaign staff he's got around him and get in a fresh direction and go with it and start running. They got to hit the ground running here, Fred, for the next 15 weeks, or they're going to lose by a landslide. This could turn into the worst defeat since Barry Goldwater, Fred, if they don't get things going here.
Yes.
All right. What do you got there for Shorty, Fred? And then we're going to take that call.
Here's from James K. Fitzpatrick. Home run L. Brent Bozell. In the event that your local newspaper doesn't carry L. Brent Bozell's syndicated columns, make an effort to locate his recent piece on the media's reaction to Gary Aldrich's book on the Clinton White House on limited access. I came across it in the July edition of the New York Post. It is a must, a dandy. It throws the spotlight on the startling partisan role being played by the mainstream media to save the Clinton White House from the swirl of scandal and stuff surrounding it.
Well, that sure is amazing. Well, Roy, can you get a close-up here of this here pop? All right. You don't have to get it that close. Just get the camera on me there. Okay, folks, you know you've been drinking Flavin' Pop now for many, many years, and you've seen it at fine funeral homes everywhere, and of course it's served at funerals all over. And you know, we told you the reason why it was served at funeral homes, because one day down there at a funeral home, a guy ran out of embalming fluid, and he grabbed a bottle of Flavin' Pop, and it did the trick, Fred. It embalmed the person, and they dug him up 5 years later, and he looked just like the day they buried him. It was amazing. So they've used this in a pinch at funeral homes ever since.
Yeah.
Now, you wonder why the Flavin' Pop is bought? There's only two places you can get Flavin' Pop, at funeral homes and gas stations. And the reason is because number two is because one day this guy ran out of gas, and he had a bottle of Flavin' Pop, and he poured it in the tank, and he got 56 miles to a gallon on a great big old Cadillac, 1933 Cadillac, which usually gets about 12 miles a gallon. He got over 50 miles to the gallon. So when he did get to the gas station then, because it was about 50 miles when he ran out of gas to the nearest gas station, Freddie, the guy said, well, how did you get that kind of mileage? He pulled out his empty bottle of Flavin' Pop, and he said, this got me there. So ever since then, Fred, this Flavin' Pop has been sold at gas stations all over the country. So if you want to buy Flavin' Pop, you got to go to the nearest gas station or funeral home. Now, if we sang the logo...
If you get it there, I'll give you $100 for the bottle that you get at any gas station or funeral home.
You heard that from Fred right here, so you're going to have to get out your check, Fred. Now, have you heard the slogan lately, Fred?
Too often.
All right, well, we'll sing the slogan.
You've been singing it ever since I met you.
What are we been on now, Fred? 20, 25 years, something like that?
No, you haven't been on 10 years.
All right, well, we've got a lot to talk about tonight, so let's get this thing going here. Okay, I'm going to sing the slogan for Fred and all the other folks out there who haven't heard it for a while. Flavin' Pop, Flavin' Pop, I don't drink slop, drink Flavin' Pop, the thinking man's drink. Found at fine funeral homes and gas stations everywhere. Okay, Fred, we got that commercial out of the way. Now, we're going to take a call here first, but I got a shorty here, Fred. The cure was worse than the disease. Some 600 delegates from 17 nations attended the first World Conference on Auto-Urine Therapy. Auto as in your own. In Goa, India recently. Proponents of the 5,000-year-old therapy claim urine hormones, abundant enzymes, minerals, and vitamins can cure everything from tuberculosis to cancer. One recommended treatment, a glass of fresh urine a day. In other words, you drink a glass of fresh urine every day. Accompanied by body massages with stale urine at least 4 days old. So there you have it, Fred, and that comes right out of the news.
Where did you get that out of?
That comes from the news. It's from the magazine called News of the Weird. The cure was worse than the disease. So there are people drinking their own urine, not only in India, but also in the United States,
Yeah.
as a therapy to take care of everything from cancer to tuberculosis. And of course, in some of these nations where they're so poor they can't afford medicine, Fred, they'll try anything. But from what I understand, Fred, urine comes out of your body totally sterile. There's no germs in it. It's a sterile product. Okay, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
Find you interesting.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to, you were talking about the Clinton administration, and I was wondering if you had read the article, issue of the Reader's Digest, that was labeled Clinton and the Union Boss.
You know, I read a little bit of that in a letter to the editor in our rival media leader telegram, but
yeah, and I wrote that letter.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and they edited out two of the things in there that I wanted in.
Well, go ahead and bring them up now. I hope the viewers can hear you at home. Is this sound okay on that? All right, go ahead.
One was that this Mr. Correa, this mafia boss,
Mr. Who?
flew with Clinton to Colorado to see the Pope in Air Force One. He also was invited to a reception at the White House for the Emperor of Japan. This man also was also co-hosted the $1,500 a plate dinner with the Democrats. Now, they must have known also that this man was a mafia character, and where they raised $3.5 million.
Now, who is this guy? What's his name again? I didn't catch that.
Arthur Correa, C-O-I-A.
C-O-I-A.
Yeah.
Is he an Italian or something?
I don't know. I haven't any idea.
Okay, but he's...
He was put into, he was summoned to Chicago and put into the position first the Secretary Treasurer to this country's largest labor union, the Labor International Union of North America. And
okay, yeah, there is some corruption in the labor union.
yeah, and he was put in there. And after the union boss died, he was put in the position of president of that union.
So it's his job to deliver money to the Democratic Party because most of the unions are married to the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and he was also the only major union boss to defy the AFL-CIO and support Clinton in the fight for ratification of the North America Free Trade Agreement.
Huh.
I thought you might find this really interesting. And what some of the people don't realize is that when Clinton came into office, he put over 100 homosexuals at the job in the White House.
Well, there's a new...
I know the number because it came right out of the mouth of the gal that's the lesbian who's one of the head ones of the Gay and Lesbian Task Force. And over 100 of them.
Yeah, that is true, and evidently some of them had drug problems because over 40 of them had used drugs recently. But I noticed another thing, there's an FBI agent or a Secret Service agent that just left his detail at the White House, and he wrote a book, which is in the top 10 right now. I think it's first or second. And in that book, he said that he personally saw some drug usage in the White House and also some homosexual sex in some of the shower rooms inside there.
Yeah.
So evidently, it sounds like Sodom and Gomorrah there in the White House, and something like that will eventually collapse on its own weight, especially with all this drug use. Somebody's going to get doped up or die of a heroin overdose, or they're going to smoke some crack and kill somebody. Something's going to leak out eventually. Stuff like that they don't get away with forever. Usually something bad happens in a situation like that, and I'm sure they've had their share of cover-ups there since January of '93 to cover up some of the problems they've had.
Yeah, well, you know, when I was reading how the mafia operates in this article, and you know how they don't hesitate to get rid of people that they don't want around, you know, because this has been going on since he's been friendly with Clinton long before Clinton was even elected as president.
Well, actually, it goes all the way back to, I'm pretty sure, Hot Springs, Arkansas, where Clinton's uncle or great uncle was tied in with mafia types, and it was a big gambling center down there in Arkansas. So Clinton cut his teeth as a child on being around prostitutes and gambling and drugs and things of that nature. So,
well, you know, there's an old saying that birds of a feather flock together, and when people are so naive as to believe, you know, that he hasn't had anything to do with these things. I said, what we got on the hill now is drug-infested Sodom and Gomorrah.
well, it doesn't look good, ma'am, and it could drag down the whole country, and that's why we got to get rid of Bill and Hillary before they start doing some drastic things, because they have both been trained in communist and socialist tactics to turn this country into a socialist wonderland, just like they did Arkansas, which, if you look at the statistics, is at the bottom of the pile in just about every statistical measure of wealth and well-being in this country. Arkansas is pretty much at the bottom, and that's after 12 years of the Clintons. So
the article in the paper was saying how the Arkansas now, since Clinton was in there as governor, their welfare roll was 147%, and their taxes have risen 20%.
right, that whole state is not much better shape than Mexico.
Yeah.
There's a rich elite, and then there's poor, and then there's some government workers like state cops and people that work for different forms of government, and just a sprinkling of a middle class, but it's basically rich and poor in that state. And a lot of people come there to retire, and they bring in their Social Security checks. A big retirement community in Arkansas, so they've got some serious problems down there, and hopefully we won't allow Clinton to turn the United States into what he turned Arkansas into.
Well, nice talking to you.
Well, thanks for calling in. We appreciate that.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, Fred, on this date, 106 years ago, 1890, this president's wife, or president's mother, was born. Who would that be? She just died a couple years ago. She almost lived to be 100.
Clinton?
No.
No?
President John F. Kennedy's mother.
Oh.
I think she died about
Yeah.
when she was 100 or 101,
Yeah.
something like that. Born 106 years ago today. Okay, Fred, here's a shocker. And then we're going to get one from you, and then we're going to take another call. Reliable sources from the supermarket tabloids have confirmed that Princess Di has her eyes set on becoming the First Lady of America. In other words, she wants to get rid of Hillary Clinton so she can become President Clinton's wife. Official or not, this marriage would cement the ties between England and the United States and place in power in both countries a dynastic bloodline that would ensure the survival of the international bankers that run both countries. The children of Diana and President Clinton would be half-brothers or sisters to the future King of England. The plans are being finalized. Should those plans fall through, the Princess of Wales has come to the United States in search of an American husband who will help her forget the pain and suffering she endured while living in the royal palace and partaking of the fairy tale life of a multimillionaire. Recently, CNN showed video of her dancing with Phil Donahue and others. Earlier reports out of New York showed her on the arm of Henry Kissinger. Is Jay Rockefeller far behind? What about George Bush Jr.? Wives and girlfriends beware. It is rumored that sources close to the top of the invisible world government have concluded that the princess has the charisma and power to squelch all ugliness that would be involved in your divorce, accidental death, or unfortunate suicide. So that's kind of a warning to Hillary. You better watch out. Okay, Fred, what do you got there?
A national book chain promotes homosexuality. Borders Books, a national chain of bookstores, joined in celebrating June as Lesbian and Gay Pride Month with a special promotion of books aimed at homosexuality. The brochure entitled Pride advertises over 60 selections, including a number of titles: Outing Yourself, Free Your Mind, aimed at young people, Daddy's Wedding, Sex Between Men, Beauty of Men, So you want to be a lesbian and lesbianism made easy.
Okay, Fred. Now, for those of you, I know we have a lot of young people that watch the show. I know because of the email I get and the phone calls we get. So we have a lot of young people that are just out of high school or just starting into college, or they're basically, our viewing audience is largely from about 15 to 35. For those of you out there that are looking for a good part-time job, from time to time we like to profile new businesses that come to town that are offering jobs. And we've mentioned several others in the past, Fred, and I think we're going to start having that as a segment on each show, because we want to see people going to work, Fred. There's nothing worse than having to sit at home and not be able to find a job.
Yes.
So for those of you who like to telemarket, there is a company that has just moved into town called Strategic Telecom Communications. They're right downtown, Fred, and they have part and full-time job openings where you can earn $8 to $12 an hour doing telemarketing, which a lot of people enjoy talking on the phone. So this is your chance to make $8 to $12 per hour. And if you're 17 to 70 and you're looking for a part-time job, go ahead and give them a call. The number is 831-8300. And we like to always pass along information like that for people that...
Repeat the number.
For people that watch the show that are looking for work, and it's a chance to make some good pocket change. 831-8300. Call, write that number down, and if you're looking for part or full-time work, give them a call. They're new to town. They have offices in St. Paul and Fargo, North Dakota, and they decided after an extensive surveying of several Midwestern states, Fred, they bestowed the honor on Eau Claire of settling in Eau Claire, and from what I understand, they're going to have between 50 and 60 full and part-time employees at any one given time. And so there's plenty of opportunities, and we always look forward to seeing new jobs come to town, Fred, because as you remember, some of the old-time viewers, there were some very dark days here in Eau Claire when the city manager skipped town. He didn't skip, but he tucked his tail between his legs and ran and got a new job out of town when the city almost collapsed because of the tire factory closing, Fred. That affected something like 5,000 people directly, maybe more.
And more of them are going to leave if and when we get a arena in here and it loses money hand over fist.
So whenever we can see where there's any amount of jobs, 50, 60 jobs coming in, we welcome it, Fred. The city welcomes it with open arms.
Yes.
Because every bit of that helps make up for those 2 years there where things looked pretty tough. And that was the years when we had that very conservative city council that kept the budget on track during those years when we lost all that revenue. I mean, that was a big hunk out of the city's revenue and the county's revenue when they lost that big tax paycheck from the Uniroyal. So we appreciate new business coming into town. So if you're looking for part-time, check out Strategic, and that number is 831-8300. Okay, Fred, what do you got there?
I got a lesbian teacher terrorizes pupil. A courtroom awaits a Vermont teacher, and the Lake Region Union High School is being sued by a family of a 14-year-old student. The teacher's parents say Cindy Smith, who is a lesbian, allegedly pulled down their daughter's shorts, causing her distress and subjecting her to ridicule. The accused lesbian is laughing off the incident, saying it was a joke. And that comes from the American Family Journal, AFA.
Okay, Fred, we better take a call here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, why don't you and Fred comment generally on the whole situation involving Steve Gunderson, Jim Harsdorf, Doug Knight, the State Republican Party, and Candace Gingrich.
All right, well, thank you very much. Would you care to say anything about it before we dive into it? Caller?
Sounds like he left.
Okay, we lost the caller there. Okay, Fred. As you know, there was quite a stir here over the last 6-8 months. Everyone was wondering, is Steve Gunderson going to run or is he not going to run? So it boiled down to the day that the papers had to be in down in Madison. The documents needed to prove that you had enough signatures to run. Steve Gunderson wasn't there at the finish line. So what he's decided to do is run as a Republican, but run in as a write-in, because if he runs independently or runs as a Democrat, there's no way that they're going to name him chairman of this agriculture committee. He has to stay within the Republican Party so that he can be named chairman, which now he is in line for. The number one man who is the chairman now is running for the Senate. The number two man just died of lung cancer. So that leaves Steve Gunderson as in line if the Republicans can maintain control of the House of Representatives, which looks fairly good because of the number of retirements. More Democrats are retiring than Republicans, so if the Republicans can hold the seats they have now and pick up a couple more, they're going to maintain their majority and possibly get a veto-proof majority where they can pass bills where Clinton, even if he vetoes them, they can override his veto. So what happened was he didn't get to the finish line. So we have Harsdorf and a lesser Republican running, probably not in stature lesser, but he just doesn't have the funds or the propaganda machinery and the campaign machinery to win. So it's boiling down right now to a Harsdorf-Gunderson race. And I've talked to some insiders in the Republican Party who say that Gunderson possibly might not have a chance, but you can't rule out somebody that's been in office for 16 years, his seniority on several committees is second, third, or fourth. He knows his way around Washington. He knows how to push bills through, and in a majority of Republicans, he is going to be an asset to the United States House of Representatives. You're going to lose that.
He's going to be an asset to the gay and lesbian community.
Right. Now Newt Gingrich, who is a close friend of Steve Gunderson, came in and campaigned for him, raised funds for him 2 years ago. They've been friends for many years. As a matter of fact, Newt named him as one of the majority whips, and he declined it, so they canceled that job out. It's no longer a job in the House. But he was in line, almost in line for Army's job, but he decided to walk away from that leadership role, and he's went in a direction of fighting for homosexual rights in the country. And he's using his talents and his resources for that. So what we have now is Candace Gingrich, who is the half-sister of Newt Gingrich. She's also a lesbian and the head of the National Campaign for Human Rights or something like that. It's a homosexual political action committee. She has said that she's going to throw in at least $2,500 and some manpower to help get the write-in campaign going for Steve Gunderson. Now also there is a group from the Alma area, a dairy group, who is the old line Republican followers of Gunderson, who are also starting a write-in campaign. So it sounds like the write-in campaign is off the ground. Now, a couple things that weren't done right, Fred. First of all, Doug Knight should have stayed neutral as 3rd District Chairman. Yes. He's the chairman of the whole 3rd District Republican Party. So he shouldn't have been taking sides on this issue one way or the other. End of story. Period. He shouldn't have been. Yeah. He's the chairman of every Republican who calls himself a Republican in the 3rd Congressional District. And on the same token, you have Harold Reinders, who's in the Eau Claire County Republican Party, shouldn't be taking sides and endorsing Harsdorf and backing Harsdorf before a primary. He should also be neutral. Otherwise, you're going to have chairmen of the county parties and chairmen of the 3rd District or any of the congressional districts in the state. You're going to have them siding with certain people before the primary, and it's going to make for uneven and unfair primary elections within the state of Wisconsin if you're a Republican running for office. So their job is to remain neutral and to represent all Republicans within their territories. Do you agree with that much so far, Fred?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in the last few years, this hasn't happened. Doug Knight broke the mold and started siding with candidates before, when he was the Eau Claire County chairman of the Republican Party. He's the one that set the standard for that. So then the Chippewa County Party started picking up on it. Now you got the 3rd District Republican Party picking up on it and taking sides. And from what I understand, there's a little bit of rumblings in the 7th Congressional District where they're taking sides before the election. Now this is spreading throughout the party in the state of Wisconsin. If that spreads nationwide, what you're going to have is you're going to have county and district chairmans going where the money is and supporting the money man and the man with the list and the man who has the in with the state party, and it's going to make for one candidate primaries. We won't have primaries because nobody will run because they'll say, hey, those Republicans aren't fair. They're not playing by the book. They're not playing fair. They're not making an open primary. So to Harlan Reiners and to Doug Knight, start being neutral until after the primary, then throw 100% of your weight behind the person who wins the primary. Up till that point, stay out of it, because you are representing every Republican in your respective area, whether it be county, district, or state. And the same thing goes for the state party, Fred. Now, I know darn well from being in plenty of races, the state party sneaks around and sends their people in and works for one candidate or the other before the primary. I know they do it. I've seen their political operatives in town Saturday night here. I was in a restaurant right here in town, and I've seen some of their front men from Madison up here, and I know they're up here because they're working in races, and they shouldn't be doing that. They're slanting races before the primaries are over, and they need to get that loud and clear down in Madison that they need to stay neutral on the state level, because that basically is where Doug Knight picked it up from. Well, he picked it up from the dirty tricks on the state level.
What's the chairman of the Republican Party here in
okay, you got R.J. Johnson is the
state
director, and the Dave Opitz is the chairman.
He came out in favor of Harsdorf.
Right, and he shouldn't be doing that. He is setting a bad example too. The state party should remain neutral until after the primary. So what you have now is going into the general election, you're going to have the way somebody can call in and tell me if this is wrong, but the way I look at it is Gunderson it's going to be a three-way race. There's going to be a Democrat. Well, I guess not. If Gunderson runs as a write-in in the primary, then Gunderson's either in or out at the end of the primary. So it's Harsdorf on the ballot. You got the guy from, what's that guy's name from down there by La Crosse, Fred? The other guy that's running for the Republican.
I can't think of his name.
So you got two bona fide Republican candidates, and you got to write in for Gunderson. So out of that's going to come one Republican against one Democrat. Excuse me. Now, theoretically, Gunderson could carry on and run as an independent, but then I don't see how he could be named to the chairman of that committee. So that's the way I see it, Fred. What do you see it?
Well, I hope that you are wrong, but I think you have sized this race up, and you are calling the facts that you have and pointing them out to the people.
The reason is, Fred, is Steve Gunderson also has 16 years of ins with political action committees, the big money, the $500,000-600,000 it takes to win a race like this. And Steve spent almost $700,000 last time. So this time he's going to have to raise that kind of money. So you're going to see the PAC starting to jump on board with Steve now. And some of them are going to remain neutral with Harsdorf, or turn their back on Harsdorf, or not give to him. Maybe they didn't have plans to give to him in the beginning. But you also have the Democratic PACs on the Democrat side. They're throwing money at their candidates. So it's not one-sided in this PAC business.
They're throwing it, they may be throwing it into Gunderson's campaign.
Okay, well, we got time for one more call, and then we got to get out of here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hello, Chuck.
Hello.
Hello, Fred.
Hello there.
Fred, so what's your position in the community, Fred? What did you used to do before you came on the call report here?
Okay, thank you, caller.
I worked for the National Federation of Independent Business.
National Federation of Independent
The
Businessmen.
largest business organization in the country and in the world.
Thousands of people belong to it.
Yeah, over 600,000.
Do they have a political action committee too, Fred?
They Tell them how, yes, they do have a political action committee.
Okay, so look forward to seeing a very knockdown and drag-out fight in the 3rd District for that seat, for that Republican primary victory. And up in the 7th congressional race, you got about a 5-way race going there on the Republican side with Dave Zine and Scott West and a couple other candidates running. So both these races are going to be nationally watched very closely. Of course, we have some other local races, the Plum Bomb race, and you'll be watching some of that right here on Public Access. They filmed some footage for United We Stand, and so that'll be being aired between now and the primary. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you once again for tuning in to the Cow Report. I've been your host, Chuck Lee. With me, as usual, is Fred the True Stafford. My director has been Roy Rogers Hoff Jr., great-great-grandson of Sitting Bull. And we want to make sure that we see you again right here on the Cow Report next time. So adios, amigos and amiguettes. We'll see you then. This session of the Loyal Order of the Raccoons is now closed for business.